Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Powerhouse Podcast. I am super thrilled and delighted as I have a treat for you today. I have a serious rock star and powerhouse joining me in the ring today, and super excited. So before we get started, let me just say hello to Sam. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Candy, how you doing? But I'm not that serious a person, really.
No, not at all, but a serious rock star. So yes. And so for those of you joining for the first time, or those of you that have joined us many times, you know, this is our space to talk about leadership and leadership in today's environment, which means it is wide open for where the conversation can go, and it gets rich and juicy and meaty as we never know which path we're going to go down. And as always, leadership, when we talk about leadership, it's truly a function of how you choose to show up, how you choose to serve others, and how you choose to take that personal responsibility inside those two spaces. So with that, let me introduce you to my amazing guest and thought leader who is joining us today, Sam Liebowitz. He is known as the Conscious Consultant, is a mentor, coach, speaker, healer, and serial entrepreneur. He has been in business since 1993 and has owned several successful businesses since then. His current ventures include The Conscious Consultant, a coaching and mentoring service which promotes sensible, ethical, moral, and conscious ways to build careers and businesses. Talking Alternative Broadcasting, an internet radio station which reaches over 100 countries worldwide, and a Double Diamond Wellness, a healing center in the heart of Manhattan. It's got a lot going on. In these various roles, Sam has inspired hundreds of people to live a life that is happier, healthier, and more fulfilled. Sam has lectured in several venues in New York City, including being a featured speaker at TED X Upper Westside in 2016. Again, Sam, welcome to the show. It's such an honor to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much, Candy. And it's really, I'm so honored to be on your show with you. You know, I'm so used to being on the other side, interviewing other people, that when I get asked to come on and be interviewed, it's always such a thrill for me.
Isn't it though? I mean, we get in this space where we're really used to it. I have to say there's times when I'm on other people's shows that I'm like, wow, that's what it's like on the other side of the table. You forget that, right? Because it's kind of nice that I get to kind of steer the ship right now. But I'm curious, especially as we talk about leadership in today's environment, right? And there's some things that you really focus on that just hit into the heart of what, you know, I believe is so critical right now. And when you talk about that being a conscious consultant and how that you're showing up, I want to first talk about this word conscious. We talk a lot about conscious leadership, conscious transformation. One of the things we really like to do on this, in this show and on the space is, or in this space and on this show, let me say that the right way, is to really get into what we mean when we say a word or a phrase. And so what does it really mean to be conscious in terms of leadership and in terms of the way that we're showing up? And why is that so relevant right now?
So for me, conscious, it's really about being more self-aware. It's really about being kind of more present to what's going on inside of us, what's motivating us, and like, why are we doing the things that we do? Why are we making the decisions that we make? And I personally believe that when we function from a more conscious place, a more aware place, then we can make better decisions, or we can make choices that really serve us and serve the mission that we're dedicated to in a much better way.
Yeah. And I would agree with that. And, you know, one of the things that I find to be opportunity and sometimes a little disheartening is it feels as if we've got a culture right now that's not really present, that's not creating the right awareness. And so one of the things I would love to pick your brain on a little bit is what do you think is either the or several reasons why people aren't taking that opportunity to be more self-aware, why we don't have a conscious culture right now? We have one that's more unawakened, half asleep, walking in a coma, and even that sense of entitlement. How does all that play together, and where do you think the miss is, or the barrier is, or the opportunity is?
So for me, I feel like a lot of the stuff, a lot of those issues kind of come from fear. And it's something that's so pervasive in society. I mean, it's in the media everywhere. You can't, look at your phone or look at a screen or anything without there being some kind of fear-based message in there. Now, why do they do this? They do this because, quote unquote, the numbers or statistics have proven if you have a fear-based news article, more people are going to listen or watch it than something that's a good news story. And I mean, I get it, but it's that way because of the way we've built things and the way we've promoted stuff. And I do believe people are hungry and thirsty for something that's not as fear-based. But because so much of society is really based on fear, that does kind of keep us asleep. We're too worried about ourselves. We're worried about, security and safety and what's going to happen. And so we're willing to do things that are more instinctual and really less conscious. Yeah. And I think to really, the opportunity is that, and then what I'm seeing, especially among younger people, is they're tired of that. They're actually tuning out. And so they're tuning out because it doesn't feel good anymore. It's causing so much stress, so much depression, anxiety. I mean, it's causing so many issues in the world today that people who at least are open a little bit, who are a little bit on the edge, they're beginning to say, oh, you know what, I can't deal with this anymore. And that's where the real opportunity is like, hey, there's a better way. Hey, we don't need to follow that old paradigm. There's actually a way that empowers us and serves us much better.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree with that more. And it's interesting because I know when you say, there's studies, and actually I ran across a statistic just recently that talked about, I believe it's like 67% more interest or more activity and engagement on a fear-based or really negative space than there is on those feel-good stories, unless it's like a puppy or a baby giggling, right? And that's the only time that you kind of get people in that space. And so I agree. I think there's a lot of people right now that are really trying to shift out of that and are saying that that's just not okay for them anymore. And so I'm curious, if somebody, I guess 2 parts to this question. One, it's that person that maybe is really tired of that space. They want more of an awakening. They want to become more conscious. What can they do to step into a space now that they've kind of turned a blind eye that says, you know what, I don't want to be inundated with that. And what can someone who's a thought leader, who's been playing in that space to try to lift that, what can they do to connect more with those people that maybe are a little more hungry to have that conscious space and have that self-awareness?
Okay, so the first part of what can somebody do who's like tired of and is turning off on it. So I would like to say there's sort of 2 aspects to it. The first is to just tune into themselves. I mean, one of the most important things that most people probably don't do enough of is just taking some time to be with yourself, whether you call it meditating or just sitting in silence or going for a walk, is to just, stop looking at the phone, stop looking at the TV, maybe go out, take a walk in the park, or just sit in silence for a little while and just be with yourself and feel what's going on. Because unless we're present to ourselves, then we don't really know like kind of what's driving us. Right. And that's something, and I just saw an article, I think it's been out for a little while, that they found that mice that are in silence for 2 hours a day, like generate more connections, more synapses in the brain. So silence like really does serve us. So just taking a time out, I mean, look, if you want to meditate, great. Meditation is amazing. But even if you don't even want to go that far, just take some time to be with yourself. And then the other thing is, so that's part 1 of that. And then part 2 of it is look for what you're interested in now. So we know what you're not interested in. You're not interested in that fear-based stuff anymore. What do you want? What are you interested in? What uplifts you? There are so many books being published every year, more than ever before. And there are so many thought leaders. I mean, we're both a member of the Evolutionary Business Council. Right. There are so many amazing transformational thought leaders in that organization and just around in general. So look for transformational thought leaders. I mean, they're the ones who really help us to give us a different perspective on things. And then if you're a transformational thought leader, how do you find those people? That's a really good question. And I say that you find those people inside of whatever kind of niche you serve. And you know, we all have sort of unique backgrounds and unique histories that make us really well suited to work with certain types of people. So within that niche, you're naturally going to find people being drawn to that who are kind of in that open state. And it's one of the things I say to people all the time is, look, I'm happy with you being skeptical. There's nothing wrong with being skeptical about anything I say, but just be open. Give it a try. See if it serves you, if it works for you. If it does, great. If it doesn't, leave it on the side and keep looking. You know, I'm not a guru. Nobody's a guru. The age of the guru is over. It's time now for us to take more sort of self-responsibility and self-direction and really decide for ourselves what resonates for us and what doesn't.
Yeah, I love that. And there's so much in what you just said that first of all, I love the simplicity of what you said. I think oftentimes, you know, we ask questions like that, and there's times where I think people try to make it too complicated. They try to say, well, you've got to do this and it's 15 strategies and you got to sign. No, it's as simple as creating silence for yourself. And it was funny because Keith, I was having a conversation with Keith from the EBC the other day, and we had a space where he was mentioning, you know, it's the space between the two breaths, the inhale and the exhale, and allowing yourself. And, you know, I do a lot of boxing and mixed martial arts, and we talk about the empty space. And there's so much power that I think people don't realize, that just that stillness, just that quiet. It's not, you got to practice gratitude. You got to do meditation. You got to do yoga. It's just being still. It's just being able to get inside to yourself. That there's so much opportunity there, and there's a simplicity and a beauty in that. And so I think, you know, you saying that, and then even for those people that are trying to turn that blind eye to the negativity that's going on, to change kind of the channel, it's as simple as just tapping into, then what do you want instead, right? And so I love how you frame that in such a way that's accessible, right? I think it's we get so caught up in trying to make things overcomplicated that there's a simplicity that we forget. That means all we have to do is lean it. Oops.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe in keeping things simple. Yeah. I lost you there for a second. But yeah, I agree. Like, so often, you know, we overcomplicate things. And for me, I can't deal with that. I mean, my life is complicated enough. I don't need more complicated stuff. I need simple stuff. So that's why, like, when I work with people, I like simple, practical things that are useful on a day-to-day basis, but, you know, have that heart in it of empowerment. I have that heart in it of, like, showing people, like, you have the ultimate power. So yeah, the simplicity is just so important. And you know, it's so simple. Also, it just, what you were saying reminded me of, like, this little story I sometimes tell. Back when I used to hold a meetup group that was all about law of attraction. I used to, you know, teach about law of attraction, and I was asking people, you know, in the audience, like, what do you do? How have you implemented some of this stuff? And one guy said, you know, I started doing day trading a few months ago. And when I first started off, I was doing really well. But then I started watching CNBC all the time and all the news channels. And then I started losing money left over right. And so what he said was, and this was beautiful, he took the parental control on his a cable box or whatever, and he used the parental control to block out all of the news channels.
That's awesome.
And then once he did that, the next month he was making money again. And then he had consistently made money for the next 2 or 3 months, because now he had blocked out all that negativity and all that fear. Because what happened to him is, when he was watching the news all the time, he was just buying right into that fear all the time. So it can be as simple as taking the parental control and just blocking out all the things you don't want to see.
Yeah. And I love that, because I have a mentor of mine that actually talks about doing a 30-day, you know, news diet and detox. And it's pulling that out.
Yeah,
I don't watch news.
yeah.
I haven't watched news for years for that reason. And it's interesting, because I had a conversation with a client of mine who kept saying, I can't understand why I have all this drama in my life and why all these things. Because what happens is people don't even know they're being inundated, because it's a subconscious kind of messaging that keeps showing up when you are trolling on social media, when you're watching the news in the background, when you're watching certain television shows. And I had a client who was like, I don't understand why there's this drama in my life. And one of my responses was, because you keep insisting on creating drama. And it wasn't until I went to her house that I was like, I understand why you create drama all the time. And she said, what are you talking about? I said, what do you stream on your TV, even for your dogs when you're not home? What are you streaming 24/7 on your television? And she streamed channels like E, Bravo, Criminal TV, whatever. And I'm like, all you're doing is inundating. Even your dogs are consuming this. And what was interesting, and I think, you know, it's a little bit funny to think this, but it actually shifted the behavior of her dogs when she stopped streaming that as well. Because I think what people don't realize is it's not just the comprehensible language that we hear, it's the actual energy. Those types of things resonate in a absolute different vibration and a different energy that even just what we absorb from osmosis and from a feeling and from a vibration standpoint, we're still drawing that in whether we think we are or not. And I have people that are like, oh, I'm good, I don't pay attention. I'm like, yeah, on a subconscious level, on a vibration level, yes, you are. And I think that's so powerful, right?
And what I heard was, and this is something I heard years ago, was that the unconscious mind, or our mind overall, takes in something like 2 billion bits of information a second.
Yes.
Only 2,000 bits are registered consciously. So there's a lot of filters there and stuff. But that whole 2 billion bits is all taken in. And so it doesn't matter whether you pay attention to or not, it's getting in there. It's what are you feeding? What are you watering your garden with? What kind of fertilizer are you using? And you know, even if, and this is so true, even if the TV is streaming and the sound is on, just the words have a vibration to them. I mean, Dr. Emoto is famous for showing how the crystalline structure of water, if you say to the water, I love you, and happiness and joy and all kinds of words like that, and then you freeze the water and you look at it in a microscope, it has these beautifully formed crystals. But if you use angry words of hate and war and frustration and anger, and then you freeze that and you look at it, they're like broken, disfigured crystalline shapes. So even every word is a sound, and every sound has a vibration to it, and we're 70% water ourselves, so it's affecting our body, but it also affects the room that you're in. And it's kind of like, and you can do this as an experiment. You can play like some religious music, some chants. You can do some very soothing music. Play it when you're not in the room. Turn it off and walk into the room and see how it feels. You know, without even hearing the music. And then like play heavy metal rock, or like have the news on talking about war, and then turn it off and walk into the room and see how it feels. You will feel the difference if you really pay attention to your body.
Yeah, and there's a huge difference. In fact, that's one of the things I work with people on, is really tapping into the frequency of music and things because there's music I listen to that gets me focused and energized and fired up. And I don't listen to that music an hour before I go to bed. Otherwise, I have a really hard time getting my mind to quiet down, right? The 400, I want more of like the 200 to 400 hertz frequency. That's that really even mantra, you know, affirmation. It's that music that, because I listen to one even for money, abundance opportunities, and it's just, I'll have it in the background. And I think about even recently, I was tapped in and dialed into some new music that was, it came to me, as everything isn't, you know, kind of comes to you as it's supposed to. And I just started that, and I'm like, wow, what shifted for me even financially and from my own abundance, even when I'm playing at a good level, has been drastic just in letting that be something that I have playing on a Sunday all day long. I'll just kind of like let it play in the back. It's that easy, relaxed recharge space, right? Versus that like 800 frequency that's like when I want to get my workout on, or when I want to get focused. And people don't understand that, you know, they've got music. They're people that go to sleep, they're like, I need the television on, I need the radio. When they can't make it a technology-free zone, which I'm a bigger fan of, just cutting out the technology in those sacred spaces.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Having places in your home in particular, but in your life that's sacred spaces, if you can't be really mindful then of what you're choosing to fall asleep to, because like you said, even on with all of what our subconscious and conscious are processing, at the end of the day, our subconscious doesn't know the difference between real and imagined. It only knows what we feed it on an ongoing basis, and it starts to create a program and a tape. And so I love that you're talking about that. I think that's so powerful, and people need to remind themselves of that.
And I really want to highlight something that you said, which is so important. There are 2 times of the day that are so critical to us. And that's the 20 minutes we spend before we go to sleep and the 20 minutes we spend when we first wake up. And that's why it's like before you go to bed at night, your last 20 minutes, it really sets the tone for what your sleep is going to be like. So like often when I work with coaching clients, I'll give them an exercise that will bring them to a better space. So usually I have them do a victory log of like right before you go to bed, just list out what are all the little victories. And, little, I say like you want to be real easy with yourself that you did during the day. Smiled at a stranger on the street, held a door open for somebody, washed the dishes, whatever it is, so that you feel good about what you'd experienced that day. So you do that before you go to bed, then you have really a much more peaceful, restful sleep. And then when you get up in the morning, I usually advise people, count your blessings, do a gratitude practice in the morning of all the people experiences and things in your life that you're so grateful for. And by doing that, you're setting yourself up to have a really good day. Because I'm sure we've all experienced it where, you get out of bed and maybe you stubbed your toe or something and you get all upset. And then like your whole day is like screwed up. Right. But if you start your day in your heart space in gratitude for everything in your life, then your day flows so much more smoothly. And this is really important, especially for leaders where like you need to be on top of your game. You want to start your day. And those first 20 minutes are so important from a place of gratitude. And they've shown their studies, and I think Heart Math Institute did a study, and they found that the highest frequency that the human body generates is when we're in gratitude.
Right. Right, because the only thing above that is love, right? And so gratitude and love play hand in hand. And I love that because we talk about that. I call it the bookends, right?
Right, exactly.
Like at least 20 minutes. I've actually got bookends that I do an hour and a half or 2 hours on the front end and the back end because I also have my activate space and my nourishment space. Yeah. Well, yeah, a little bit. But it's also that space because like you said, I think, leaders don't realize, and this is one of the biggest conversations I have in corporate, and the fact that you just said that, you need to be able to really be in a space where you can be in a heart space first. Leaders who don't take that 20 minutes in the morning aren't allowing themselves to be positioned to lead effectively. They're already being led by someone else because they're in their phone, they're in their email, they're in something. And we get so caught up in our headspace that we forget we've got to drop in to that heart space. And what's also powerful is that 20 minutes before you go to bed, you have the opportunity to fuel your imagination. And your imagination is at its peak when you're sleeping. Our best creativity happens when we sleep. And it's amazing to me how many people think sleep is a luxury when I'm like, sleep is the ultimate necessity. It is the non-negotiable of all non-negotiables that ever was, that if you aren't getting what you want in your life, the first thing that I'll say to people is, how much sleep are you getting? Because your sleep is not a luxury. It has to be first and foremost your biggest priority. Because to what you said, it allows you, I believe it's the only thing that allows you to drop into that heart space. And to go back to what you said originally, become more self-aware and mindful and conscious that time, and I think it was Tony Robbins that said, if you can't take 10 minutes for yourself a day, then you need an hour, right? And it's amazing to me how many people will resist 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening and wonder why they're so caught up on this cycle of life-sucking energy that's just, not serving them.
Exactly.
So I'm curious, because one of the other things I want to talk about, because you bring this in terms of how you serve, it's connecting into that ethical and moral space. What does that mean when you're talking about being self-aware and having that conscious space to lead, to serve, to show up? How do those connect?
Well, the thing is, I think a lot of people don't realize that we tend to sometimes be a little bit short-sighted when we make decisions. and I like to call it in a way sort of enlightened self-interest, because taking the ethical and moral way of really being much more in integrity and authenticity of what's really best for not just yourself, people around you, the planet, the environment. That ultimately is what serves us the best. It's what's most sustainable. And one of the biggest problems today in the world is there are so many practices that are completely unsustainable. You know, what we do with waste, with packaging, using up resources. There are better ways in how we generate energy. There's so much better ways of doing it, but it requires sort of a shift in perspective. And, you know, I know like people always point to the Asian cultures because they will look at things not for next quarter like we do in this country, but they'll look for 10, 50, 100 years out. They'll have a 100-year plan to go past themselves. And anyone out there who has children or grandchildren, I mean, I have nieces and nephews, you know, the future is of a concern. And it's really just being sort of more ethical and moral and more mindful of the world around us. It actually serves us. I mean, I have to be honest, like I'm on this kick because that's the kind of world I want to live in. Right. You know, I want the world to be a better place because I want to live in a better world. So that's why I kind of call it enlightened self-interest. It's like, are you being the way you would like other people around you to be? Are you treating the person on the other side of the deal the way you would want to be treated? And it's so important because the more we get into that mindset and that energy, the more we foster it, the more it kind of radiates out, and then it becomes a more standard way of being because it's the more normal way. And because it's not right now, that means, you know, we have to put a little more effort in it. We have to kind of make that energetic beachhead and be the spearhead to say, no, this is the way that we need to go because it's what works for me. And so that is really one of the most important things I feel about the work that you and I do.
Yeah, and I agree. And I love, you know, I think we forget as a collective culture sometimes how much every thought, every decision, every action, every word we say creates a butterfly effect or a ripple effect or domino effect, whatever you want to call it, that we are not isolated, that we are so all intertwined and connected that our choice to throw trash on the sidewalk isn't about us. It's about that ripple that it's creating that, you know, we think about where tsunamis come from and we think about these hurricanes and these tornadoes. In my belief, and, you know, call me crazy, but I really believe it's this space of a collective lack of consciousness, that we are making decisions that are all magnifying this certain kind of vibration, that when you get enough people playing in that space, that's where these disasters, that's where this other energy is happening, because somehow that's creating that ripple effect that's rolling out. And I think, you know, to have that mindfulness to say, it's not about next quarter, right? We're so in a culture of look at corporate. What's the next quarter's numbers? Did you hit your OP? Versus that sustainable approach that says, is what we're doing now. And that's more of what I like to call that win-win-win equation. It's not just a win-win for you and me. It's a win for you. It's a win for me. And it's a win for anyone that's affected by that decision, that choice, that whatever. And what you're talking about, it's that mindfulness to know that that bigger win is the collective win of humanity, of the global consciousness of 20, 100 years from now, our children, our grandchildren, my nieces and nephews, taking that personal responsibility, right? Right. I mean, I've heard it called the quadruple bottom line. Is it good for the business? Is it good for the employees? Is it good for the customers? And is it good for the planet? You know, and that's the quadruple bottom line. And that's where, because look, if we keep poisoning the planet around us, look, the planet's still going to survive. We may not. You know, it's not about saving the planet. You know, people talk about saving the planet. No, it's not about saving the planet. It's about saving ourselves. Right. And saving for the future generations, because we're the ones making the environment more hostile to ourselves. But as we become more conscious, and I see it in the kids today being much more mindful of the ecology, of recycling,
And we see in different countries around the world that they're actually, Germany phasing out all of its coal-based plants. We are doing it, and are we doing it fast enough? And the other thing too is also it's a great opportunity, because also the people who come up with the solutions, like how to clean up all the plastic in the ocean, and I know there's like investigations into like various fungus and mushrooms that can eat up plastics and can eat up toxins and stuff. Like, there are solutions. We can turn this around, and there are some really bright people out there working on it. But that's a great opportunity. You want an opportunity for a great business? Look at an environmental problem and find a natural solution to it. It will be one of the biggest businesses around, and it'll be good for everyone.
Yeah, that's so true on so many levels. And I love, because I hear people say that it's not that the planet's going to go anywhere, it's that we're going to go somewhere, right? The planet can regenerate itself, renew itself. Mm-hmm. The planet is far smarter than we are in most cases. And it's, unless we have that wake-up call, unless we become, to your point, more conscious and create that legacy of sustainability, versus just thinking about our instant gratification of what we need in this moment, we won't change. We ultimately are impacting humanity as a whole. The world, the earth, the planet will be fine. Once it clears out humanity, it'll restore itself and grow something new, right? So
exactly.
I think that's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, and it's really, it's all about like how we live our life. Like, are we living a life that's sustainable for ourselves? Like, just in terms of, like you said before, how much sleep do we get? Are we getting enough rest, enough exercise? Are we eating healthy enough to sustain our bodies? And as we sort of create this awareness or this consciousness around sustainability just for ourselves, we will naturally start to think that way more holistically. Is it a sustainable business model? Is it a sustainable product? Is it a sustainable, future that we're creating? So it's about really getting that level of awareness, and then it seeps into everything in our life once we've fully embodied it.
Yeah. And it's like growing a muscle, right? You start with a certain, and then you keep growing and you keep making it bigger, and it's the same thing in it. Anything we do in any kind of conscious space always starts with, how are we doing for ourselves? And are we positioning ourselves to have that sustainability? And then, because you've created that discipline for you, it becomes that natural tendency to create that discipline outward. So absolutely agree with that 100%.
And then when we show up in the world, that energy is we embody it, and it shows up, and then it affects the people around us, even if they don't know what we're doing. Right. They'll all of a sudden start getting these ideas. Oh, maybe I should buy organic now instead of GMO stuff. Maybe I should, recycle a little bit more paper or whatever. And so you start influencing other people without even having to say a word, because unconsciously we pick up what other people do. And this is especially important for parents. Parents, always tell kids, do what I say, not what I do. That doesn't work. You have to embody the very things, because our children will always model our actions after us. So be the model you want your children to be, embody the way you want them to be, and they will follow suit. And it's not just for children, it's for anybody we're exposed to. And as leaders, anybody who's looking up to us, they're looking up to us on an energetic level. Mm-hmm. So how we show up in the world energetically is going to affect them energetically.
Absolutely. And it just reminds me of that quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, right? That was, be the change you wish to see in the world. Yes. And so I think that so powerfully exemplifies that. And so, Sam, I'm curious, we could have this conversation all day. We are so playing in the same space. And I know that you and I are actually going to see each other in a couple of weeks. And so I'm super excited, because we actually really get to play in this space.
Yay.
In Vancouver. So yay us.
Yeah.
So for the rest of the people listening that may not get to be up in Vancouver with us, how can they connect with you to continue this conversation? How can they lean into the work you're doing? How can they engage in how you're creating that model of sustainability? What's the best way for them to connect with you?
So the best way to reach me is just through my email, which is sam@tedxupperwestside.com. theconsciousconsultant.com, and that's all one word, theconsciousconsultant.com. And that's my website, which is an old website right now. I'm actually in the process of revamping it, and hopefully in the next month or two I'll have a temporary site up, and then I'll have a really cool website up later on. But you can always check out theconsciousconsultant.com, but just email me, sam@theconsciousconsultant. And if anybody reaches out, I'll just do a little special thing here for people, for your listeners. You say you heard me on Candy Barone's show, and I'm offering like a free half-hour, just kind of exploratory call, just to kind of see where you're at and see if I can offer some insight or advice around sort of where you're doing. And I'll just offer that for your listeners because, you know, we're both in the EBC, and I'm so appreciative of this opportunity to be on your show, Candy.
Oh, that is such a, wow. For all of you listening, first of all, thank you, Sam. That is, wow. I'm so truly touched and honored by that. And for those of you listening, I want you to realize what this gift is that he's offering. Sam's time is trust me, we are in the Evolutionary Business Council together, and for Sam to offer his sacred space and time, my eyes are actually watering by that. I want you all to honor and really recognize the magnitude of the gift that he just offered you, so that if anything he said, I'm so crying right now, if he resonated with you, if you are feeling yourself energetically drawn to all of the amazing, powerful, beautiful things that he shared today, I encourage you to reach out and take that opportunity. 30 minutes with Sam can change your life. It's changed mine just in the time that we've been here together. And just know that 30 minutes of his time is incredibly valuable. So just deeply honor you, my friend, for sharing that. What a beautiful surprise. And that is literally making me cry.
Thank you, Candy.
So that being said, as we close this amazing episode, one, just truly heartfelt, soulful thank you, gratitude for being here. You are such a beautiful spirit and soul. And I know we haven't had a lot of time to get to know each other at length. And I feel that in the short time that we have, very deeply connected to you, more so today. And know that after our time together in Vancouver, you will be a soul brother if ever, for sure. So thank you for being on the show. And do you have anything you'd like to leave this audience with today before we say our goodbyes?
So one thing I want to offer to the audience is just a tool, and it's a way I've been training. I've been doing some shamanic work, that we're more than just the mind. In the West, we're so focused on the mind and our mind and our mind, but we're also a body. We're also a heart. We're also spirit. And being able to dance and move to those four directions, earth, air, fire, and water, you know, there are appropriate times to be in one and appropriate times to be in another. And so I just offer that as a way to think about your life and think about kind of how you're showing up. Are you more in your heart? Are you more connecting with people? Are you more in your mind, planning things? Are you more in your body, like when you're kickboxing and exercising? Or are you more in spirit, looking for inspiration and stuff? So I just want people to know, like, you're much more than you think you are. And that's just one little way of looking at things that can be very powerful, that can really turn your life around. So I just want to offer that to your audience.
I just love that, and so love you. Thank you again so much for being here. And I hope all of you will heed Sam's invitation to really explore those four areas of your life, to lean in and to learn your own dance. And to do that really all starts, as always, with you saying yes to yourself, you destroying the noise that's getting in the way, and you powerfully, purposely, and passionately stepping up and being the leader that you were destined to be. Leadership is a choice. It is ultimately a function of how you choose to show up, how you choose to serve, and how you choose to take personal responsibility inside those two spaces. So much gratitude to my guest, Sam Liebowitz, for joining us. So much gratitude for all of you for continuing to be on this journey with us. You have my heart. I am so glad that you are all here. If you have not subscribed yet, please do, so that you don't miss any of these episodes with the amazing thought leaders I have lined up to have these incredible conversations. And with that, just know I'm sending you all heart-to-heart hugs, and we will catch up with you on the next episode of the Powerhouse Podcast. Thank you so much, everyone. Mwah.
Bye.